My name is Heather Evans. I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, my father stood in front of 200 people at his retirement party and humiliated me so badly that I finally decided to disappear from his life forever. The party was at a huge country club in Fairfield, Connecticut. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Waiters carried expensive champagne. Everyone wore designer clothes and fake smiles. My father loved every second of it. He stood on stage with a microphone in his hand, smiling proudly while introducing family members one by one. "My beautiful wife Linda," he said first. Everyone clapped. "My son Marcus, the future CEO of Ivan's Logistics." More applause. Then his eyes landed on me. "And this is my daughter Heather," he said with a laugh. No degree, no future, still freeloading off the family. The ballroom exploded with laughter. 200 people laughing at me. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't break. I simply picked up my champagne glass and smiled. "Cheers," I said calmly. "This is the last time any of you will ever see me." The entire room went silent. Then I walked out. But to understand why I finally left, you need to know what happened long before that night. You need to understand what kind of family I came from. From the outside, the Evans family looked perfect. We lived in a huge 6-bedroom house with white columns and perfect green grass. My father drove a Mercedes. We belonged to the most exclusive country club in the county. People respected us. Or at least they respected my father. Richard Evans was the CEO of a successful logistics company. He cared deeply about reputation, money, and appearances. My mother died when I was 8. Cancer. Fast and cruel. I don't remember her face clearly anymore. But I remember her hands. Soft. Warm. Always reaching for mine. After she died, the house became cold. 2 years later, my father remarried Linda. Linda came with a son named Marcus. Marcus was 3 years older than me, handsome, confident, and loud. Within months, they became the center of the family. I became invisible. No one screamed at me. No one hit me. That almost would have been easier. Instead, they ignored me. Marcus got praised for every little thing. Marcus got the newest clothes. Marcus got a sports car when he turned 16. I got his old leftovers. Marcus was the future. I was just there. Every dinner felt the same. Dad asking Marcus about business. Linda praising Marcus. Everyone laughing at Marcus's jokes. Meanwhile, I sat quietly eating my food like furniture. The only person who truly saw me was my grandmother, Margaret Evans. She called me every Sunday. "How are your classes?" she would ask. "What are you dreaming about these days?" No one else ever asked me those questions. Grandma Margaret always told me something important. "People underestimate quiet girls, Heather," she'd say. "That becomes their biggest mistake." At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. Later, I would. When I turned 20, everything changed. I was studying business at UConn. I loved school. I worked hard. I had a 3.8 GPA and dreams bigger than Connecticut. I wanted to build something of my own. I even had an application ready for a summer program in London. Then my father called me home. "Family meeting," he said. Those words always meant bad news. I found him sitting behind his giant mahogany desk. Linda stood beside him with her hand resting proudly on his shoulder. Marcus wasn't there. That alone told me everything. "Heather," my father began, avoiding my eyes, "we need to make sacrifices as a family." My stomach tightened. Marcus got accepted into Wharton's MBA program. It's a huge opportunity. I stayed silent. "We can't afford both your tuition and his program," he continued. "So we've decided you'll leave school for now." Linda smiled gently. "A girl doesn't really need a business degree to have a happy life," she said sweetly. You'll meet a nice husband someday. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Not because I was shocked. Deep down, I always knew they would choose Marcus over me. But part of me still hoped they wouldn't. You promised Mom you'd help me finish school, I whispered. Dad's jaw tightened. Circumstances change. That was it. Just like that. My future disappeared. Later, I learned the truth. They had the money. They simply didn't think I was worth spending it on. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I packed my things and left for Boston with $2,000 and a suitcase. My first apartment was tiny. 400 square feet above a noisy laundromat. The walls shook at night. The radiator made horrible sounds. I worked mornings at a cafe and nights as an administrative assistant at a small logistics company. Most nights I ate ramen noodles and stale bagels. But for the first time in my life, nobody controlled me. And that mattered more than comfort. The owner of the logistics company was a rough older man named Walter Barnes. One evening he noticed me staying late after everyone else left. You know, he said, you're smarter than half the people working here. I laughed awkwardly. I'm serious, he said. You've got a brain. Use it. No one had ever said that to me before. So I did. I learned everything. Shipping systems. Warehouse operations. Supply chains. Negotiations. I took free online classes at night. MIT courses became my college. I barely slept. But slowly, I started building confidence. I realized something important. My family had spent years convincing me I was weak. But they were wrong. For years later, I started my own consulting company. Meridian Consulting. At first it was just me, a laptop, and a tiny rented desk. I kept my identity hidden. No interviews. No LinkedIn profile. No public photos. All communication went through lawyers and account managers. Why? Because I knew my family. If they discovered I was succeeding, they would either steal credit or try to destroy it. So I built quietly. Silently. The way invisible people survive. Then Grandma Margaret died. I flew back to Connecticut for the funeral. Dad gave a beautiful speech about family love. It almost made me sick. 3 days later, I got a call from a lawyer named Eleanor Smith. Your grandmother created a private trust fund for you 8 years ago, she explained. I nearly dropped the phone. The trust contained $800,000. Grandma also left me a letter. Eleanor read it aloud. My dearest Heather. I know what they did to you. I know about your tuition. I know about the promises your father broke. This money is yours. Use it to build the life they tried to take away from you. Remember this. When they finally understand your worth, it will already be too late. I love you. Grandma Margaret. I cried harder than I had in years. Not because of the money. Because someone had believed me. Someone had seen everything. I used part of the trust to expand Meridian Consulting. And the company exploded. 15 employees. Millions in yearly revenue. Luxury office in Back Bay. Real success. The funny part? One of our biggest clients became Ivan's Logistics. My father's company. They signed a 5-year contract with Meridian. We improved their systems. Reduced costs. Boosted profits. My father constantly praised Meridian Consulting in meetings. He called the company brilliant. He had no idea he was praising me. Then came the retirement party. 3 weeks ago. When the invitation arrived, I almost threw it away. But something stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe curiosity. Maybe exhaustion. I think part of me already knew what would happen. The Fairfield Country Club looked exactly the same. Rich people pretending to love each other. Fake smiles. Polite cruelty. I wore a simple black Valentino dress. Grandma Margaret's pearl earrings. Everything I owned, I bought myself. That mattered. Linda greeted me at the entrance. She smiled while her eyes scanned my clothes. "Heather," she said brightly. "You came. Your father wasn't sure you'd have something appropriate to wear." I smiled back. How thoughtful of him. Inside the ballroom, Marcus ignored me completely. I found my seat assignment. Table 14. Near the kitchen doors. Far away from the family table. Of course. I sat quietly and listened. That's when I overheard Dad speaking to another executive. "Meridian Consulting transformed our company," he bragged proudly. "Whoever runs that business is a genius." I almost laughed. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. It was Daniel, my CFO. Ivan's Logistics wanted to renew our contract for another 5 years. I stared at the message. If Meridian walked away, my father's company would collapse. 40% of their operations depended on us. Dad didn't know that. Neither did Marcus. Suddenly, I realized I held all the power. Not them. Me. Later, I ran into Aunt Susan near the bar. She looked at me with fake sympathy. "Heather," she said softly, "your father told us you've been struggling emotionally." I blinked. "What?" "He said leaving school really affected you." "Poor thing." Then Uncle David joined us. "There's no shame in not being successful," he added kindly. "Not everyone can be Marcus." That's when I understood. Dad had prepared them. He'd built a story about me. The unstable daughter. The failure. The disappointment. I walked outside before my anger exploded. Marcus followed me onto the terrace. "Well," he smirked, "look who finally showed up." I stared out at the golf course. "Dad's worried you'll cause drama tonight," he said. "Why would I?" "Because you're jealous." I slowly turned toward him. Marcus smiled cruelly. "You never got over the fact that I was chosen and you weren't." His words should have hurt. Instead, they felt pathetic. "I heard you started some tiny business in Boston," he continued. "How long until it fails?" "It won't fail." He laughed. "You've always been weak, Heather." For 1 second, I almost told him the truth. That his company depended on mine. That his future rested in my hands. But I didn't. Some truths deserve an audience. Then came Dad's speech. The humiliation. The laughter. And finally my goodbye. When I walked outside after the speech, I felt strangely calm. Like something inside me had finally snapped free. But before I reached my car, Linda grabbed my arm. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed. Dad stormed outside behind her. "Get back inside," he ordered. "No." His eyes widened. "No?" "You humiliated yourself tonight," I said quietly. "Not me. It was a joke." "No. It was honesty." He stepped closer. "If you leave now, you're done with this family." I almost laughed. "You cut me off 12 years ago." Then I got into my Tesla. Dad froze when he saw the car. Real confusion crossed his face. Like he was suddenly realizing maybe he didn't know me at all. "Goodbye," I said. And I drove away. The next morning, the messages started. Relatives texting me. Pretending to care. "Heather, your father says you had some kind of breakdown. We're worried about your mental health. You should apologize." I ignored all of them. Then I got a more interesting phone call. A partner from Ivan's Logistics called me. He tried sounding casual. Apparently rumors connected me to Meridian Consulting. They were investigating. They were getting close. That's when I knew the hiding needed to end. A few days later, Linda called. Her voice sounded sugary sweet. "Your father feels terrible," she said. Why don't you come home so we can fix this? Is he apologizing? I asked. A pause. He wants to move forward. Translation. No apology. Then her voice changed. Cold. We know something else is going on, Heather. Whatever you're planning, stop now. I hung up. The next morning, I met with Eleanor Smith. She spread documents across the table. Every Meridian contract. Every legal protection. Every exit clause. You can terminate the Ivans contract whenever you want, she explained. No penalties? None. Then she looked at me carefully. Your grandmother said something important before she died. I swallowed. She said, tell Heather not to be cruel. The truth will hurt enough by itself. I nodded slowly. That night, I sat alone in my apartment writing a letter to my father. I rewrote it 7 times. The first version was too angry. The second too emotional. Eventually, I kept it simple. Dad. The company you mocked at your retirement party belongs to me. Meridian Consulting is mine. For 3 years, your business survived partly because of the daughter you called worthless. I built my company without your support. Grandma Margaret believed in me when you didn't. I'm ending our contract because I'm done allowing people who hurt me to depend on me. Please don't contact me again. Heather Margaret Evans. I mailed the letter Monday morning. Then I waited. By noon, I had over a dozen missed calls. Dad. Marcus. Linda. Over and over. I ignored every one. At 2 p.m., my assistant knocked on my office door. Your family is downstairs, she said nervously. Of course they were. I asked her to send them into the conference room. I chose the glass conference room on purpose. Not to embarrass them. To protect myself. Witnesses keep dangerous people polite. When I entered, they all looked shocked. Not because of me. Because of the office. The view. The employees. The success. My father looked smaller somehow. Older. What is this? He demanded. I calmly slid documents across the table. Company registrations. Contracts. Financial reports. Proof. Dad stared at them like they were written in another language. You own Meridian? He whispered. Yes. Linda looked pale. But, you don't even have a degree. I stared at her. I built something anyway. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. You've been planning this for years. No, I replied calmly. I built a company. Your company became dependent on it. That's not the same thing. Dad rubbed his face. I'm sorry about the party, he muttered. No, you're scared about the contract. Silence. Because we both knew it was true. Marcus stood again. If you pull this contract, people lose jobs. That's unfortunate, I said quietly. But not my responsibility. You're destroying us. No. Your father did that himself. Linda suddenly burst out. You could have told us who you were. I laughed softly. When exactly? During the years you treated me like a burden? Nobody answered. Then I told them about Grandma Margaret's trust. About the money. About the legal protections. Dad looked furious. She had no right. She had every right, I replied. Finally, Dad's mask returned. Cold. Sharp. If you walk away now, he warned, you'll lose your inheritance. I almost smiled. What inheritance? You already gave everything to Marcus. For a second, nobody spoke. Then I stood. This meeting is over. Linda's eyes filled with tears. Fake tears. Heather, we're family. We share blood, I said. That's all. Dad stared at me. You really hate us that much? I looked at him carefully. And for the first time in my life, I answered honestly. No. I just don't need you anymore. That hurt him more than anger ever could. They left quietly. Marcus looked furious. Linda looked terrified. Dad looked broken. And suddenly I understood something. People like my father survive on control. The moment you stop needing them, they collapse. A week later, I got another phone call. This time from Uncle Robert. Dad's younger brother. The family black sheep. I hadn't spoken to him in years. "There's something you deserve to know," he said. My chest tightened. "When your father told you there wasn't enough money for college, he lied." "I already figured that out." "No," Robert said quietly. "You don't understand. Your mother created a special education fund before she died. Enough money to send you anywhere in the country." I stopped breathing. "Dad used it for Marcus?" "Yes." The room spun. My mother had tried to protect my future. Dad stole it. "That's why Margaret created the trust," Robert continued. "She knew what Richard did." I couldn't speak. For years, I believed my father simply chose Marcus. Now I understood something worse. He stole from his dead wife's daughter to build his perfect son. And everyone knew. No wonder Grandma Margaret protected me. 2 months after I terminated the Meridian contract, Ivan's logistics started collapsing publicly. Layoffs. Bad press. Boardroom panic. Marcus had barely become CEO before the company started sinking. Richard came out of retirement trying to save it. But the damage spread fast. People in Connecticut started talking. About the party. About me. About the daughter Richard mocked publicly while secretly depending on her business. His reputation shattered. Not because I exposed him. Because the truth escaped. And once truth escapes, you can't control it anymore. One former colleague told me Richard now sat alone at business dinners. Nobody trusted him anymore. Nobody respected him. I wish I could say hearing that made me happy. It didn't. It just made me sad. Because deep down, I never wanted revenge. I wanted love. I wanted respect. I wanted a father. But some people are too broken to give those things. 6 months later, I started therapy. Not because I was falling apart. Because I was finally ready to heal. Dr. Patel asked me something important during our first session. "Do you regret walking away?" I thought carefully. "No," I answered honestly. "But I grieve it." That was the truth. Walking away from family feels both freeing and heartbreaking. Like escaping a fire while mourning the house. Outside therapy, life slowly became peaceful. Meridian kept growing. We replaced the Ivans contract with healthier clients. Daniel became my official business partner. We hired new employees. Moved into a bigger office overlooking the harbor. For the first time in my life, success didn't feel like survival. It felt safe. I also reconnected with Uncle Robert. Once a month, we had dinner together. He told me stories about my mother. Real stories. Apparently she was stubborn. Funny. Fearless. "She would have been proud of you," he told me one night. I cried in the restaurant bathroom afterward. Not from sadness. From relief. Sometimes we spend our whole lives starving for one sentence. I visited Grandma Margaret's grave often. One spring morning, I brought white roses. "I did it, Grandma," I whispered. "I survived." The wind moved softly through the trees. And for 1 second, I could almost hear her voice again. "I always knew you would." So what's the lesson in all of this? Maybe it's this. Your worth is not decided by family. Not by money. Not by degrees. Not by the people who failed to see your value. Your worth comes from what you build when nobody believes in you. From how you survive after people try to break you. From choosing yourself after years of being chosen last. My father thought humiliating me at that retirement party would finally put me in my place. Instead, it set me free. And freedom changes everything. I don't hate my family. That surprises people. But hate keeps you connected to pain. I don't want that anymore. I'd rather spend my energy building a beautiful life. A peaceful life. A life filled with people who actually love me. That's the thing nobody tells you. Boundaries are not revenge. They are protection. They are the moment you finally say, "This is where your damage stops." If you've ever felt invisible inside your own family. If you've ever been mocked, ignored, underestimated, or treated like you didn't matter. Please hear me. You are not what they called you. You never were. Sometimes the people who know you least speak the loudest about your worth. Don't believe them. Keep building. Keep surviving. Keep going. One day, the people who underestimated you may finally understand who you really are. And by then, it'll be too late for them. As for me, I'm finally free. And for the first time in my entire life, I finally feel seen. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place?